There was a little boy that was going into a toy store with his dad, and they got separated, and the little boy saw this, you know those inflatable men, or sometimes they're a picture of it's a clown, but you punch them and they come back up. And this little boy was fascinated with this balloon man, he called him, the balloon man. And so he kept punching it, and it kept falling down and coming back up and falling down and coming back up. And his dad saw him, and his dad says, "Why do you think that keeps, every time you hit it, it doesn't stay down?" And he was ready to tell his son about gravity and the weight in the bottom weighs more than the air on the top. And the little boy thought for a moment, and he said, "I don't know, I guess it's because he's standing up on the inside." He's standing up on the inside. And that's what these people, I came across a website yesterday called stacker.com. I don't even know how I got there, but there were 50 pictures of people who could stand up on the inside, that were facing adversities and challenges. And I wanted to share, not all 50 of them, but I want to share a few of them with you, because they're such a great example, especially during this Black History Month, because some of them are Black Americans. But let's show Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, most of us know who Harriet Tubman was. She escaped slavery, returned 13 times to free her family and friends out of slavery. What a brave woman. The next one is immigrants arriving at Ellis Island. And this is between 1892 and 1943, some 20 million people came to the U.S., immigrated to the U.S. to become U.S. citizens, hopefully, and the adversity they had to face in order to do that, the hardship they had to face to do that. The next one is relief. This is a soup kitchen that after the San Francisco earthquake in 1906. 3,000 people were killed, and about half of the 400,000 population in San Francisco were homeless after this earthquake. The next one is unemployed people in New York City during the Great Depression, trying to find a way to make some money. About 25% of the population during the Great Depression were unemployed. And the resiliency it took to get through that time. The next one is Rosa Parks getting her fingerprints taken after she was arrested by not giving up her seat on the bus. She was, after that happened, she was harassed. Her life was threatened continuously. She moved to Detroit with her family. She got involved in the civil rights movement. She co-founded a self-development institute to help the youth in Detroit. She wrote an autobiography. She was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 1999, which is the highest medal award a civilian can earn. And when she died in 2005, she was the first woman to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol. She overcame great challenges and shows resiliency. Of course, the next one is Selma, the march, the civil rights, series of civil rights protests that happened in 1965 from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, which started because of the black voting rights not being honored. Of course, Martin Luther King Jr. is in this picture. We know that John Lewis was part of this protest as well. And then the next one is Ground Zero, and all the people that came together and showed such resilience after that terrible, terrible time in history of our country. And finally, we have Ellie Weissel. Here he's speaking at the 20th anniversary of the opening of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in 2013. He himself was a Holocaust survivor. He authored 57 books. He was a Nobel laureate for the Peace Prize, overcoming great challenges, showing lots of resilience. And there was surprisingly no picture of what we've been going through these last couple years with the pandemic, but just honoring all those healthcare workers and first responders and everyone who has stepped up and showed resilience during these last couple years as we've faced almost 1 million deaths here in this country from COVID. It's amazing and it's inspiring, and I love these pictures and these slides of these people because it shows how resilient we are as human beings, that the human spirit cannot be stomped down for too long. And the reason I'm showing this and sharing this with you is because we're working with Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection. And we're looking at the 10 guideposts to wholehearted living. This is the 3rd week of this 10-week series, and this one is on cultivating resilience. That ability that we all have to get back up after we've been challenged or pushed down, or something horrific happens in our lives, that we have the ability to get back up. And in order to do that, Brené Brown says the research says that we need to let go of numbing, that we need to let go of hopelessness and powerlessness. And she said, and the most fascinating thing to her about the research for cultivating resilience was that every single person that she interviewed that was resilient was also spiritual, that they practiced spirituality. And for Brené Brown, the spirituality is that knowing that we are all connected. I'm not ready for that yet, but knowing that we're all connected and that we're all connected to a power that's greater than ourselves. That it's so important to have a spiritual center in our lives to be resilient. That we need to know that we're connected to each other, that there's this oneness. And without that, we don't have any hope. We feel powerless. We need to know that we are connected by this one source, this one power, this presence, unity's first principle. There is only one power in the world, God, spirit, life, whatever you want to call it, that one power. And it underlies everything. It is present everywhere, always. In the midst of every tragedy, Spirit is there. I love the origin of the word spirit. It's spiritus, and it means breath. And breath, if you think, is air, but the movement of air. That's why I love this metaphor of using a bouncy castle. If you watched the sneak peek this week, I talked about a bouncy castle and how a bouncy castle is a great example of resilience. Because no matter how much pressure you put on it, it springs back. It comes back to its shape. And what's underneath it but air being moved by a fan? It's what gives it its shape, what gives it its bounce. We all need that bounce too. We need that bounce in our lives. We need to know that inside, we're standing up on the inside. And a bouncy castle also needs to be grounded. It needs to be tied down. It needs to be grounded as we do. Be grounded to that spirit that underlies everything. That's what will give us the strength to be resilient in hard times. Brené Brown says this on page 73 of The Gifts of Imperfection: is spirituality a necessary component for resilience? The answer is yes. Feelings of hopelessness, fear, blame, pain, discomfort, vulnerability, and disconnection sabotage resilience. The only experience that seems broad and fierce enough to combat a list like that is the belief that we're all in this together and that something greater than us has the capacity to bring love and compassion into our lives. The spirituality is that connection. It's that oneness. It makes us bouncy. It gives us a sense of purpose and perspective and meaning. And we need that to be resilient. She goes on to say that resilient people are resourceful. They're good problem solving. They have good problem solving skills. They're more likely to seek help. They're better able to cope. They realize that they have social support. And they feel connected with others. We see resilience in many people that can inspire us to be resilient ourselves. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first job at a Baltimore TV station. We all know what Oprah did after that. Chris Gardner got involved in a business that was unsuccessful selling medical equipment. His girlfriend left him and he became homeless. And then he applied for an internship at Dean Witter and became a very successful broker. And of course, the movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, is about him and his life. And Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Probably the greatest basketball player of all time. And he said he's missed 9,000 shots, and he has many times, they counted on him to make the winning point at the end of the game, and he's missed. And he attributes his great success to his failures. Be resourceful. Having problem-solving skills, not looking at these things that happen to us as failures, but as opportunities to rise again, to not give up, as the song said, don't give up. Because it's Black History Month, I want to tell you a story about Ellen and William Craft. These are two people who stood up on the inside, even though their outside worlds didn't show that. They were black slaves in Georgia. William was sold to a cabinet maker, I believed, and learned how to make cabinets to pay off his previous owner's debts. And Ellen was given as a gift to her master's wife's daughter, because Ellen was her master's daughter with his biracial slave. And she was given away. And so Ellen and William both ended up in Macon, Georgia. They married. They became favorite slaves of their masters. William, because he was a cabinet maker, his master kept most of the money, but he probably got to have a little bit of money from his skill as a cabinet maker. And Ellen was a house slave, so she was given extra or special permissions for leave. She was very fair-skinned. And William had an idea. They wanted to have children. They were married. They did not live at the same plantation, but they wanted to have children. But they didn't want to have children knowing that it was possible that they would be separated or their children would be sold. And so William came up with a plan to escape slavery. It took Ellen a while to jump on board with this idea, because the idea was that they would not sneak in the night, but go in broad daylight. That Ellen would dress up as a prosperous young man, white man, and William would be her slave, and they were going to travel to the north together. So Ellen had her arm in a sling because neither of them could read or write. And they knew they would have to sign registries, to be in a hotel and buy tickets for a ship and train tickets. And so she had her arm in a sling so she could get out of doing that because she didn't know how to write. She had William put bandages on her face because she had very smooth skin and she didn't want to be given away. And she put on some glasses and a top hat. And they went and bought train tickets. They had gotten passes from their masters to be gone a couple days over Christmas, so they had some time that they had bought. And they went to buy tickets, and of course the ticket master saw that he couldn't write his name, let him go. William went into the Negro car, whereas Ellen was in the white car. And just as William was getting into the car of the train, he saw the cabinet maker. And so he ducked into the train and slouched down in his seat, and the cabinet maker went into the white cabin, looked right at Ellen, and said, "Good day to you, sir." She thought she was good. Just as the cabinet maker was going to go into the Negro car and probably find his slave there, the whistle blew and the train started moving and the cabinet maker jumped off the train. Ellen thought she had a pass. She looked to the person sitting next to her, and it was someone who was a good friend of her master's who had just been there for dinner. He pretended to be deaf so they couldn't have a conversation. And off they went to Savannah. 200 miles later, they get off the train. Ellen and William go to get passage for a ship to take them to Charleston. And again, she can't sign. They're given lots of warnings. Be careful of your slave, young man. There's people will try to steal them or take them back, or just be very careful. They get on the ship. The captain invites him to dine with him. I mean, they're given the best cabin because of his injuries, because he's all bandaged. I mean, this is incredible that two slaves were treated like they were, really wealthy white people. And dinner with the captain. Anyway, they get to their next place, and they're trying to get train tickets, and the ticket master is not buying it. He's like, "You got to prove that this slave belongs to you." A lot of people come through here trying to take the slaves away. And the captain of the ship comes by and says, "I'll vouch for them," signs the name and lets them go. They end up getting to Philadelphia unbelievably safe, ecstatic. Said that they were praying the whole time, that if it wasn't for their belief in God, that they wouldn't have made it. They end up moving to Boston and find out that slave, they had been found out, and so they moved to the UK for 20 years, where they had 5 kids, came back 20 years later and built a school for black children in Georgia. It's an incredible story of being creative and being resilient and not giving up. Not giving up. They bounced back. Well, did they really bounce back? I love this bouncing back phrase, but is it really bouncing back to the life that was, or bouncing forward to a new life? They bounced forward. As we can do, we can bounce forward. We're not going to go back to everything the way it was after we can get rid of the masks and after, when the pandemic is done with us, when this virus is done with us. But we can bounce forward. We can be resilient. Who among us hasn't had challenges in our lives? and found themselves needing to bounce forward, bounce up, realize that you're standing up on the inside. Heartbreak, grief. I've been dumped, I've had my heart broken, I've grieved, I've been passed over for jobs. You know, all of us have faced things like this in our lives. And it's the Spirit in us, it's the Spirit lying underneath all of this that gives us the ability to say, don't give up. I'm standing up on the inside. Stand up on the inside, knowing that anything that is truly ours is never lost to us. And anything that is not truly ours never really was. All these challenges that we have, all these challenges that we face. Richard Rohr talks about it. I shared about a video I watched a few weeks ago about the false self versus the true self. And he says that every time we're humiliated or humbled or notice ourselves in a situation that we don't like, we're definitely coming from the false self, not the true self. The true self doesn't compete, doesn't compare, doesn't feel threatened, doesn't judge. So these humiliations or these challenges or these things where we're feeling this, angst and anger and sadness, we're living in our false self. It's just a reminder, get back to source. Get back to being grounded. Realize that you can stand up from the inside. But how? How do we bounce back? How do we bounce forward? How do we do that? I was reading a blog by Patrick Buggy called 6 Practices to Build Crazy Good Resilience. And he says, accept the fall and realize it's temporary. Hardly anything in our lives is permanent. It's all temporary. Realize that. Just accept it. It's not the end of the world. Connect with your role in the situation. Take accountability. For whatever the situation is, we played a role in it. So accept that. And think of the question, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? What is this here to teach me? And he says, celebrate. Celebrate. Oh, I'm being bullied right now. Celebrate it. Celebrate it. We have to look at it from a broader perspective. It's there to teach us something. Be patient. So many times we want a quick fix, and Brené Brown talks about that in this chapter too, with hope. We want something that's fast and easy and efficient, and not everything is fast and easy and efficient, especially on the spiritual path. It takes patience. It takes time. So get yourself grounded. And then he says, reconnect with your vision. Reconnect with your vision. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? How do you see yourself? Stay focused on that. That will move you forward. That will allow you to stand up on the inside. And then he says, finally take the next step from the highest version of yourself. Whatever it is in that moment. And sometimes that highest version is not the same as it is other days. And accept that. I'm doing the best I can this day, in this moment, in this situation. Can be resilient. Just as we are in our body. I was watching a documentary called Human, The World Within. It's not what I thought. I thought it was going to be more about consciousness and, but it wasn't. It was about the body. And the second episode's about the circulatory system in the heart and how amazingly resilient our bodies are and how amazingly resilient our heart is. That when we're under a great deal of stress, when we're grieving and deeply grieving, our hearts get damaged. Our hearts literally get damaged physically. But connection and resilience, touch, can heal the heart. It actually heals the physical heart. We create a hormone called oxytocin, which is thought of as the love hormone. But the love hormone, oxytocin, is actually produced not only with touch, not only with physical connection, but also doing yoga, being mindful, meditating. Whenever we connect to that greater source of our being, that greater power, that divine, beloved part of ourselves, we produce oxytocin, and it heals our bodies, slows down the heart, reduces inflammation in the blood vessels. It's amazing. Our bodies are amazing. So are you resilient? Are you standing up on the inside? You got a little bounce in you? You bouncy? The ultimate probably example of resilience was our way shower, Jesus. He says in John chapter 16, verse 33, "In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." There will be tribulation in the world, in life. Be of good cheer, because I have overcome the world. I am. That divine part of ourselves can overcome that. Eric Butterworth says this: "Do not let your life be shaped by the world about you, but let God remold your mind from within. Establish yourself in the consciousness where you do not let people or conditions determine how you act. Get your faith lifted up and get yourself turned on to the divine flow." This kind of consciousness will allow you to stand up from the inside. Are you willing? Stand up. Peace be with you. Namaste.